respect my employees. I do not micromanage. I despise micromanagers. I believe micromanagers are passive aggressive, and passive aggressive people are pretty much useless to being efficient. One, they don't communicate well, because if they if they were communicating well, then they wouldn't be micromanaging. Okay, I hire adults. I don't hire children, and I expect you to meet deadlines. I don't really. I, as a contractor, love being 1099 employee because I work when I want to work. I work how I want to work. Basically, you can't tell me whatever, right? So I kind of treat them kind of like that. As far as we give them 2 remote days that they don't have to be in the office, and the only reason we do that is building a building is not that easy, and being remote can cause communication breakdown, and some things have to go very quickly in our industry, and it just literally being able to see the person and have a 5-second chat versus are you there on a Teams meeting? Let's set up a meeting like for
Well,
me.
you actually, I see on the computer screen, but are you actually here, right? Are you
Yeah.
focused on this?
Or it's just like the amount of time wasted trying to set up communication is stupid. Some industries can do that. We can't for some things. We are crunch time for some things. You know, like and they have to be very good with their time because I've told them all like the only expectation we have is deadlines. So, you know, if you don't meet your deadline and there wasn't a really good reason, you might not have a job
Yeah.
because the deadline is clearly established way beforehand. I put in a buffer to the deadline, pencils down, which means that we actually set aside. I have, for any deadline that we have, I have a minimum of 48-hour deadline because the tools we use depend on the internet, and sometimes that doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So if you're waiting to do the last of your work that day, and then the vendor like Bluebeam is it's a PDF software that almost everybody in the building world design. It doesn't matter if you're architect, engineer, if you're making buildings, you're using Bluebeam. It's an online based PDF software. Well, last year they went down for a day. They were down, so you weren't getting work done. You better hope your deadline wasn't due that day. So I put in also safeguards to protect that. So if you didn't meet the pencils down, you better be busting your butt to meet the actual deadline. And if you don't meet that deadline, that's the one thing we always meet our deadlines in Atlas, and we do quality work too. So I treat them like adults, and if you treat them like adults, if you give them fair packages, fair compensation, you have empathy. Like I really leadership is something that is a skill that takes time. Some people are natural leaders in the sense that they're charismatic. Their personality type just allows them to. I'm one of those people. There's the maverick, the maven, and the salesperson.
Yeah.
Right. So the maverick does whatever they want. They do it before anybody else. They set the trend. The salesperson convinces everybody else that what the maverick is doing is cool, and the maven collects people. Right. And I realize like that when it comes to employees, like you're right, the right talent is more important. So like the right people, they will amplify your strategies that you have as a company, and the wrong ones will stall it. And I don't hire for today's needs, right? I hire for what's going to happen for tomorrow's challenges. Okay, because I'm going to train and build up my employees for the challenges of the future. And I pay for their continuing education. I pay for their exams. You know, we had a guy pass his FE exam, gone. He's no longer a draftsman. He's gonna go work somewhere else as an engineer, right? So you have to be willing to do that kind of stuff. And I also believe in like relationships really do matter. Like I said, you're there with these people more than you are your family. So having the right person is more important. I don't need the best engineer. I don't. I need an engineer that's capable of learning and really can work with their team. And then I like to know that like when it comes to brilliance and stuff like that, or finding someone really clever or smart, you can't expand on brilliance or exceptionalism on a shaky foundation. So, like to make sure that they have a solid foundation, like a rock or your family. You know, now everyone says, "Oh, we're a company of family." I don't mean it that way because I don't like that, but you gotta give them a good foundation, and then like culture is really big. Um, I think culture. So culture eats strategy for breakfast. Like it really does. It shapes behaviors more than any plan that you could have as a company, any SOP culture, right? That's why I would say that's why the military has the boot camp initiation to get you indoctrinated into the culture. You know, you will make your bed, you will do your shoelaces this way, you will do it that way, and once you're into the culture, it's that's what they need, right? And for me, culture is like the operating system of an organization. It really is. And a lot of companies fail on culture. They think it's ping pong tables and little stuff like that. That's not culture. But you have to create an environment that has innovation, that has accountability, and has collaboration to thrive. That is culture. And like I said, it will eat strategy for breakfast any day because when you have a living culture like that, they'll dig deep if they have to dig deep, right? But that's a hard thing for some people to realize or do. Businesses, I think, fail on what real company culture is all the time. I believe that communication is also something that I mean, this is one thing Jeff Bezos really did do, is he realized that there were so many barriers of communicating with somebody that actually could make decisions that doesn't help with culture and stuff. So I like transparency. Transparency builds trust and it builds alignment. And I also like sharing my vision and processes and everything with everyone across the board. Okay, if people don't know what we're doing, then we're not leading, we're hiding. Right? If the company doesn't know what I'm doing, if the company doesn't know what Alice is doing, then we're not leading that company. We're hiding behind something, right? So you have to communicate across the board with everybody, not just like everybody. And then leading, like you have to coach, you have to mentor, you have to empower, even if it means someone's going to leave you, then find a better job or move to another, whatever it is. You still have to do that. Because your legacy for me is the leaders that follow that if you're going to be C-suite, if you're going to be owner in a company that you hit your retirement age, you got shares, you're getting your dividends from profit at the end of the year. Well, how do you keep that going? Well, you do that by making new leaders that for your company. So like my job is not to be the smartest person in the room. Okay, my job is to build a room full of smart, empowered leaders. So all of my project managers or higher up engineers, I really focus on them too, because I don't need to be mentoring the engineers in training, right? That's what they do. But these people want these higher up engineers or any employee that maybe wants to get into ownership. They want equity into a company. They want to get there. You really gotta realize like empowering them to do that is the best thing you could ever do. So you have to be a leader of leaders. There's team leads and then there's managers, and I do think there's a clear distinction. A team lead cares about the person, and a manager cares about the numbers. Right? A manager will fire you because the numbers tell them if we don't get rid of like our sales are down, right, or whatever it is, and we can't keep running, so we're gonna have to trim. We're gonna have to cut someone, or else, we either go down to 18 people or 20 people lose their job, right? So the manager is gonna put their manager hat on and have to make a managerial decision. That's not the same as leadership. A leader will be the person that is able to shake their hand and hug them and make sure that if they do walk out that door, they know that it's different. So I really do think that part of what I do is to teach people to be leaders. Because it's weird, you go leader, you go manager, and then you go leader again. And you do rely on managers to make those decisions on certain things. But it's I think a very very important part of what I do that is not a technical aspect. That is part of being a CIO.